Welcome back. Let's talk about GIS outputs in this section 2 of week 2. In this presentation, we'll talk about map audiences, who they are, how to design maps for specific audiences, and how to use map layouts, and how to use map scales, and how to actually create multiple maps on the same layout, and talk about output pages, and we'll talk about how to add graphs and reports onto the map layout, and we'll also talk about animating a map. We'll talk about exporting these maps that you create using ArcGIS into more user-friendly formats like a JPEG or a PDF, and then we'll conclude week 2. So let's get started. So map audiences. So it depends. It really depends on your audience what your map should look like. So most of the times you use ArcMap for two purposes, which is exploration or presentation. So usually when you're exploring your data, you usually are a trained analyst who are actually looking for special trends and patterns, and you are actually, this map is not for presentation quality. This is just for your understanding of the area that you're looking at, and this need not be a very fine-tuned map. So it could be a little abstract, so to speak. So you can use the any colors you want. It could be grayscales, and you don't really need to pay a lot of attention to some of the details that you would if this is a presentation quality map, like if you are presenting this for any public meeting, or trying to put this in a presentation like a PowerPoint, or maybe in a brochure or something like that. So you need to, in that case, you have to make this more believable, and you have to focus on actually your colors, your your presentation, your symbology a lot more than if you are just working for yourself. So map layout is very critical. How you lay out your map. You need to maintain main map size and location. You need to maximize your map real estate, and then you need to focus on labeling your map correctly. You have to give it a title, maybe a subtitle. What is the map about, and where is this, and what are your, the project name, project city, maybe project county or state, and when whether you created this map in 2011, 2012, which month, could be critical information. Legend is very critical because sometimes there could be 20 different colors on the map. Not everybody understands what color is what, so you need to actually put a legend. And then you can talk about data sources, like sourcing your data is very critical, where the data came from, whether it's census or whether it's your own data, or somebody else. So you need to credit the data source, and then you need to add a graphic scale for people to understand the size of the map. So more map elements. One of the critical elements is pointing out the north, using a north arrow, which would orient people to the map, and then give like a rectangular boundary to the map so that it's neatly outlined or neat lined. And then you might want to consider using other elements like inset maps or data tables or charts, maybe an additional text to explain the map, and maybe some pictures if you need some. So these are the map elements you need to, map layout elements that you need to work with when you are actually doing a presentation. So this is a good example of a map layout. So as you can see here, this is the title. The map is nice and big and is taking most of the page, and we are actually maximizing the map page real estate, and then you are actually using a north arrow, a scale bar, and you are crediting the source, which is the city of Pittsburgh Police City Planning, and then you are actually adding a legend to the map so that people understand what these big red dots are, which is in this case crime codes. So this is a pretty good example of a decent layout. So again, another example is how this map is laid out, nice and clean, there is data sources, there is no north arrow or scale. Sometimes that could be redundant. We all know which way is north in the case of the US, and then you have a nice neat legend and a title. So fonts, I always recommend using simple and legible fonts. Don't use calligraphic fonts or something like that unless it is required. Again, it really depends on the context of the map, where this map would end up being, in whose hands, or who is your map audience, whether this is a formal location, informal location. Now, most of what happens in this class should be considered formal, so don't use silly fonts and, cursive, don't use crazy fonts, just use like standard, clean, simple, legible fonts. And use, keep the number of fonts to the minimum. Don't use like 10 different fonts to label. Use one font to label your features, one font for your title of the map, one font for your legend. Just keep it simple. Maybe 2, at most 3, I would say. And then the placement is critical. And if you are using labels on your map, make sure that they have contrast to the background, which means you might have to add a halo or something. And this is a bad layout. As you can see, the legend is too big. It's not properly formatted. And the map real estate is not maximized, and unemployment doesn't really say a whole lot about the map. Where and what is not explained. This is a pretty bad layout. So this is a good layout where you actually show the person. Clearly visible, legible title. Percentage of unemployment in Pittsburgh in 2000. That makes a lot more sense. The map is maximized. The real estate of the page is maximized. So is the legend, and the data source is credited, and this is a good layout. So you can see the difference clearly between these two maps. So let's talk about map scales. Scale of the map is very critical. So we already spoke about this a little bit in the previous session, but map scale is nothing but like a scale ratio. Generally, when you work in ArcMap in a map view, which I will show you, it's dimensionless, which means the scale is irrelevant because you can zoom in, zoom out to anything you want. So there is no scale, so to speak, when you work in a map view of ArcGIS. But when you actually switch to the layout view, the map scale comes into play very much. And so map scale is nothing but a representative fraction. Example like 1:10,000 or 1:1,000. So what that does mean is 1 inch on the map is equal to 24 inches on the ground, or something like that. So map scale is critical when you put a map scale, you are telling your audience or the map reader on how to actually depict that map or how to measure that map. So a graphic scale is a graphic representation of a map scale, sort of like places a line on the map with ground distances marked such as 10 miles, 20 miles, so on and so forth, which means that much length on the map is equal to so many units in reality. So whatever, I'll show an example in the next couple of slides. So map scales, how to read a map scale. What is a large scale? So 1:5,000 is called a large scale because you show a lot of detail on this map, which means you're showing a small area which has large amount of detail. Small scale is small detail because we are showing too much on the map, like a world map is too big. It has a lot of details, so it's a small scale map, and you are showing small amount of detail on this map. So that's how you're supposed to understand large scale and small scale. So this is where the scale bar is. When you actually open a map document, as you can see, 1:100,000 is the scale of this map view right now. Although this can be considered scaleless because you can zoom in, zoom out fairly easily. A map scale is critical, as you can zoom in, 1:24,000, which is a more standard scale. You see a lot more detail versus this map where you show too much detail. So this is a small scale map this is a large scale map, a medium scale map, and this is a large scale map because we actually are zooming into the downtown area of Pittsburgh and showing the real details of the buildings and so on. So 1:5000 is really large scale. Using street names, perhaps a lot more detail than what you have seen at 1:10,000. So commonly used map scales are defined by the USGS. And you can see what scale represents how many inches on the map and so on. And this is a pretty good reference if you are actually working for the government, which you might. So this could be a handy slide. Map units. So map units are usually measured in feet or in meters for the most local and government GIS applications. As you can see here, if you go to the data frame properties, which we will see during the walkthrough, if you go to the general properties, you can see which units you want to show on the map. So how do you want to measure your distances? The basic scale. Map units, you can set your map unit. It could be feet or meters or centimeters, anything you want, or it could be decimal degrees. So you can set some options here in this map units portion of our map. So you can inches the map unit for most CAD applications. So when you actually import a computer aided drawing or assisted drawing, I think. So when you like an AutoCAD map, when you import something like that, the default unit comes with the map unit is usually inches, which of course you can change the map units. When the map is being displayed, you can change the units to perhaps like a feet, which would be a lot more easy to read map units sort of thing. So that's map units, and let's talk a little bit about multiple maps in the same layout and outputting pages. So maybe this would make a lot more sense during the walkthrough, because adding multiple frames within the same layout could be a little tricky concept to understand in theory. So let's just look at this example. So usually when you actually create a layout, you just have one map, like right here. But when you want to show a different map or a second map on the same page, that's what you call multiple maps in the same layout. So when you add this could be a reference map, or this could be a different map, the same map showing different parameter, like population. In this case, populations of Asians and blacks versus Asians versus blacks, sort of a thing. So again, this is a small example on how to actually do it. We'll see how to actually do this during the walkthrough. And then there is something called data-driven pages, which you can use to actually create automatic maps for individual features within the same layer. So if you have, let's say, 20 different census tracts, and you want a map for each one of those census tracts, you can actually automate this in a way. You can set this up in a way that it exports all these 20 maps individually using data-driven pages toolbar. So we'll see how that's done. So maybe in this case we are actually using different municipalities and actually creating a map for each one of those. So we can, during the data-driven pages, you can control the dynamic text, which could be the municipality name, and then you can, as you can see, we are going through different municipalities using quite easily. Just like click on the next button here. Once you set that up, it will go to the next municipality, sort of a thing. So this is a very useful tool, especially when we are doing like a map book sort of a thing, or maybe like trying to create the same map over and over again for different areas. And then adding reports and graphs. So let's so if you want to add, I don't know, the top 10 states which have the highest number of Asians, like in the example we were seeing before, you want to add that table to the map. You can do that. So all you need to do is create a report where you can go to view and click on reports and create a report and add the fields you want to show up on this table, and then you can format this in a way that it's easy to understand and it's visible, and you have some preset formats that you can use so that it's easily formatted. So once you have done that, you can select your colors and color schemes, and you can give a title to the report and save it, and then you can add that table. You can generate that table quite easily. Once you do that, you can, if you're really interested in formatting this, you can actually work on Report Designer, where you can modify the advanced fields like advanced features like fonts and so on and so forth, column widths, and make additional header footers and stuff like that. You can work on this. This could be a project on its own. So you can really format this quite nicely, and you can add that report to your map so that it looks nice and clean, and it adds value to the map at the same time, because you are actually giving out more information than the map itself. We are actually calling out the top 10 states, in this case, of which have Asian population, which happens to be around the coast. So that's how you add a report to your layout, and this is how you add a graph to your layout. So what you do is you click on view, graphs, and create, and you can customize all these fields. We'll see how this is done during the walkthrough. Again, I'm just gonna breeze through all this stuff, and you can actually format this so that it's legible and clear, and you can add this into a layout also. There is another feature called map animation, where this could be time based. It could be like a time series animation. In this format, in this example, what we are seeing is we are trying to animate crimes over time. So you go to the time tab and you enable a time feature, which is the time animation on this layer, and then you select the time field, which is our date field, and then you say, okay, what's the time step interval, whether you want to animate this for each day or each month, every other week. You can calculate that, and you can actually calculate how many frames you might get using this animation. So once that's done, you get like this time slider window options, so you can like slide and actually watch the data grow or the crimes committed animated. So you can control the playback speed and so on and so forth. So this is 2009. I wish this comes up, but anyways, you can see the animation, and this would be this would keep populating all the crimes that have been committed during the months of July and August of 2009. We'll see that in action a little later. And exporting maps, sometimes an MHD is quite difficult to open. Not everybody has access to RGS, so we need to export these maps into like a raster format, like a JPEG or a TIFF format or a bitmap. And then you need to work at the same time. You need to make sure that the exported images are at a higher resolution or a smaller resolution, depending on where you are going to use this map, and make sure the colors are proper when you export these maps. And then if you want, sometimes you can export them to like a Illustrator or maybe like EMF format, where you can use these in Photoshop and stuff like that to further work on your map presentation. So also JPEG and PDF are very common for web viewing purposes. A PDF is most common format that ArcMap exports to. Most of the maps could be PDFs, and those are universally read right now, accepted format. So all you need to do is click on File and Export, click, and then you will find several options. Save type, save as type. Just you should be fairly familiar with this kind of a thing if you work with the Office suite like Word or PowerPoint or something like that. So that's the JPEG that you get, and the same thing in a PDF format. or maybe an Adobe Illustrator where you can control some of these features itself. You can probably change the colors or maybe add shadows to it. There's a bunch of stuff you can do in Adobe Illustrator because you are getting them in a vector format. So Word and PowerPoint, what you can do is, if you are trying to paste this map into like a Word or PowerPoint, all you need to do is select all these elements, copy and paste individual elements into a PowerPoint or something. These are interchangeable, like I shouldn't say that. These are compatible elements within formats like ArcMap and Office suites are compatible, so you can just copy paste most of the map elements quite easily. So other outputs, we won't actually go into detail about this, but you can export them to ArcGIS server, publish them, and you can probably view them in Arc Explorer, or an Arc Reader. Sometimes you might want to export the features to Google Earth or something like that, so that people can actually view them dynamically using Google Earth or ArcGlobe or something like that. You can read up on ArcGIS server. Those are the links if you are interested in that kind of stuff. And there are a few more links on how to export, Arc Reader and Arc Explorer. So Google KML files are quite useful. Let's say, for example, one of your colleagues or your partner, they create a KML in Google Earth or Google Maps or Bing Maps, and you want to import those files into ArcMap. There is a way to do it quite easily. There is a KML toolbar. Within our toolbars, you can use that to import those layers into ArcGIS. So that's week 2 presentation. Now we'll jump right into the walkthrough part of the presentation. Thank you for watching.